Okay, next topic, troubleshoot static and dynamic .1q trunking protocols. First of all, remember how the .1q tag is made of. First 16 bits are always 8100. Next 3 bits, which are the priority code point, are used for quality of service. Next 1 bit for the drop eligibility indicator, and 12 bits for the VLAN ID that will give you 4096 VLANs. Next, you have to remember the Cisco VLAN ranges. VLAN 0 is reserved, you cannot use it. VLAN 1 is the default. All Cisco switches come out of the box configured with VLAN 1 on all their ports. You cannot delete or modify VLAN 1. Then you have the normal VLAN range for Cisco that includes VLAN number 2 to 1001. You can add, modify, or delete VLANs in this range. This range comes from an ancient Cisco protocol that is known as ISL that could only handle about 1000 VLANs. Then you have your reserved VLAN range that goes from VLAN 1002 to VLAN 1005. These VLANs are regularly not used anymore. Then you have your Cisco extended VLAN range that goes from VLAN 1006 to 4094. You can also add, modify, or delete VLANs in this range. VLANs 4095 is not documented. Some switches use it for internal features, but you're better off not using it. In order to configure static trunks, remember to set up always the encapsulation to .1q, because some Cisco switches may offer to use the old switching trunking protocol ISL. Set it up as switch port trunk and switch port trunk non-negotiate to disable dynamic trunk protocol. Always use a non-existent VLAN for the native VLAN for security, and always use add and remove parameters when working with the allowed VLANs list. To troubleshoot your static trunks, remember to use show VLAN, show interfaces switch port, and show interfaces trunk. We'll see more about that in the lab. Next up, VLAN trunking protocol, or VTP. It's a Cisco proprietary protocol that allows you to have distributed VLAN database across a set of switches. This can help you, for instance, if you want to create 1000 VLANs in 20 switches. With VTP, you only have to create the 1000 VLANs in one switch, and VTP will take care of distributing your 1000 VLAN database across your 20 switches. How do you create a domain? Just set the same VTP domain name in all your switches that you want to belong to the same domain. There is also a password that you can set. VTP offers you 3 versions, so you have to choose what version you will be working with. Version number 3 supports the extended VLAN range. Every time you make a change to your VLAN database, a revision number will get increased by 1. You must take care before connecting a new switch to your VTP domain. You must reset the VLAN database version to 0, because if you happen to have a client that has the same domain and password as your VTP domain, and that client happens to have a VLAN database with a higher version than your current working database, that client will override your operating VLAN database and disrupt your network operation, which is bad. VTP can become dangerous. Watch out for that. And remember that if you want to make changes to your database, only one server can do it. That is the VTP primary server. How can you configure switches in VTP? Your modes are server, client, transparent, and off. Servers can do anything. Clients cannot modify the VLAN database. They only receive changes from the servers. Transparent switches can have their own VLAN database locally. They will not play along with the distributed VLAN database, but with a relay VTP message if they see one. Switches configured as off, in off mode, can have their own local VLAN database, but they will drop VTP message and they won't relay them. You can have three types of VTP advertisements. Summary, which gets sent every 300 seconds or when a change happens. These summary advertisements include VTP version, domain name, configuration revision, timestamp. The subset advertisements happens after a VLAN changes, and they include only relevant info about the change. Client request advertisements happens when a client wants to ask for more information regarding the VLAN database. In order to configure VTP, remember to set up your VTP domain name first, then choose the version, and then choose the mode, and optionally a password. In order to troubleshoot your VTP, always use show VTP status, and if you want to work with the VLAN database, issue the VTP primary command in enable mode. More on this in the lab. Next, dynamic trunking protocol, or DTP, is another Cisco proprietary protocol that sends messages every 30 seconds, and this protocol will negotiate elevating interfaces into trunk mode between switches. In order for that to happen, it requires that both switches belong to the same VTP domain, of both having domain name as null. Remember that is important. You can configure DTP in three modes: trunk, dynamic auto, or dynamic desirable. Trunk will set up an interface as trunk if the other side is auto, desirable, or trunk. If you set up the mode as dynamic desirable, this will elevate interfaces into trunk if the other side is trunk, auto, or desirable. If both sides are auto, the interfaces will not get elevated into trunk mode. So remember, auto and auto will not establish a trunk. Auto and auto will not establish a trunk. Remember that. All other combination will. If you want to disable DTP, issue the command switch port non-negotiate. And in order to see what is going on with your DTP, remember to issue show interface switch ports. More on this in the lab. Check out the lab. That's it.